Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan stated that Trump's plan to expel some 2 million Palestinians is unacceptable. In the coming days, an Arab summit is expected to convene to once again take a firm stand against what is being called the forced migration of Gazans. So the Turks definitely don't like this. And like I said, if they do mass deportations of the Palestinians, the revived Ottoman Empire is only going to become more powerful, because people, the Islamic world, will be gazing upon the neo-Ottoman world as their hero to save the Palestinians from the sinister and insidious Zionist. So Israel really is in a lose-lose situation, because if Israel deepens its security ties with Saudi Arabia, Turkey will say, okay, you guys are deepening your ties, we're going to get both of you. You Sunni Muslims, you're working with the Jews, we're going to get you. And if Israel does mass deportations, Turkey's position as the leading nation of the Islamic world will only grow stronger. It's also set the stage for a potential Arab-American summit, which, according to Arab sources, could take place as early as the end of the month in Saudi Arabia with Trump's participation. Trump's plan assumes that the Palestinians, without being consulted, will eagerly embrace the opportunity of a lifetime, offered a villa with a golf course and swimming pool in the Sinai Desert. At the same time, this is not going to happen. It's not. Have you ever seen how the Egyptians treat the Palestinians? They put them in a giant concentration camp. You can look into this yourself. If you look at all the Gazans who have been living in Egypt, they all live in a concentration camp. They all live in a fenced-out area where they are completely and utterly contained by the government. There is basically a hospital center where they have been putting the injured Gazans who have been injured by the war, and they put them on this hospital grounds, and they have to live in the hospital. They have to live in the medical camp, and they can't leave. They have to stay there. Yeah, there's going to be no pool and resorts in the Sinai for Palestinians. This is all bullshit. At the same time, it ensnares the leaders of neighboring countries, not just Egypt and Jordan, in a dilemma fraught with threats. And I think this is the whole point. I think the whole point of Trump making this extreme statement is to say, okay, Jordan, you give me something that you want to do. You propose to me what you want to do. And Egypt has made a proposal. Egypt has said, okay, we can help rebuild Gaza, but just don't deport people to us. When they see Palestinians, they have flashbacks of the Muslim Brotherhood. That's correct. That's why they don't want them. That's at least the main reason why. I understand all of this. Just like I understand that there were Jewish people who were Marxist and their presence was used to justify anti-Semitism. And that was very common in the past. That was a very common thing to do in the past. I understand all this stuff. The permanent resettlement of approximately 2 million Palestinian refugees means transferring the so-called Palestinian issue to their territories, along with the national security, economic, and social implications that come with it, both at the state level and at the broader Arab level. For Jordan, where 2/3 of the citizens are Palestinians, the migration of hundreds of thousands of additional Palestinians represents a demographic earthquake that could trigger an internal upheaval, potentially ending the reign of the Hashemite dynasty. You see, I knew it was a good idea. I knew it was a good idea to read this article. Here is Jordan. Here's Israel. Here's the West Bank. Map time with Ted. That's right. Here's Iran. Here's Iraq. So here's Iran. Here's Turkey. Here's Syria, Iraq, Jordan. So Iraq used to be under Saddam Hussein. They messed this country up. 1 million Iraqis were killed because of American policy. Syria, they were raping this country for over 10 years, and then they finally got what they wanted. They got the dictator out, the eye doctor. He got toppled. He's living in Russia. So now all that's left for, let's just say, the area that's adjacent to Israel is Jordan. And so you have a chain here. Iran, Iraq, Jordan, Israel. If the Hashemite kingdom is overthrown and the Hashemite kingdom is no more, Iraq is already a majority Shiite country, which means that it's already just an extension of Iranian influence. Iran can simply go into Iraq, from Iraq into Jordan, from Jordan into Israel. If the Hashemites are toppled by some Islamist uprising, there will be no buffer zone between Israel and Iran. And if Turkey and Iran want to join forces, they can join forces, and they can attack Israel from Lebanon. They can attack Israel from Syria. They can attack Israel from Jordan. And Israel shares a very large border with Jordan. Israel shares a small border with Syria. It shares also a small border with Syria. And it shares a large border with Egypt. So I'm not sure if Egypt is going to turn on Israel anytime soon, but if Jordan is taken out, if the Hashemites are taken out, there will be no buffer zone between Iran and Jordan. And that will actually weaken Israel. So if the Israelis think that they're so smart, if they think that it's such a great idea, amazing idea, to park 600,000... The kingdom still vividly recalls the events of Black September in 1970. The bloody conflict that threatened King Hussein's rule and life. Only after a fierce struggle was the king able to expel the PLO from Jordan. Even now, although Palestinians from the West Bank hold Jordanian citizenship and Jordanian Palestinians, those born and raised in Jordan, occupy some of the highest positions, the Palestinian community in the kingdom is still regarded as a suspicious element, even though they are the majority there. It's very weird. Jordan, there's nothing really like Jordan as far as demographics go. I don't think there's a country in the world that is majority refugee or majority foreign. Because you have Jordanians, they are the native Jordanian population, but then on top of that, you have Palestinians. And the Palestinians are the majority, and they are still deemed as refugees. So I've never heard of a country that has a majority of its population being foreign and or refugee. I've just never heard of that. It's quite an anomaly. It's quite an anomaly. Jordan does permit the political activities of the Muslim Brotherhood, whose representatives are also members of parliament, but it bans Hamas and doesn't allow even family visits for its leaders, understandably. So the resettlement of hundreds of thousands of Gazans, many with ties to Hamas, could destabilize Jordan and lead to conflict with Israel. Resembling the situation in the 1960s and 1970s, it could also mirror Lebanon, where the second wave of Palestinian refugees in the 1970s created the ongoing threat known as Fatah land. So yes, there was a civil war in Lebanon. Palestinian refugees weren't treated very well. Eventually, the PLO began to do violence in Lebanon, began to do terrorist attacks in Lebanon, and you would then have the rise of the Kataib, who were Christian nationalists. The Christian nationalists went to war with the Palestinians. The Israelis helped the Kataib, or the Phalange, or the Maronite Catholic Lebanese nationalists. And that war lasted for many years, and eventually it culminated into the massacre of Palestinian refugees in the Sabra and Shatila camps, I want to say in 1982. So very, very bloody. So if you take hundreds of thousands of Palestinians and you park them into Little Jordan, where they already have issues with Palestinians, or they already have tensions with Muslim Brotherhood members or Palestinians who are sympathetic with Hamas, then there is a very high prospect that it will destabilize the country. And if it destabilizes the country, that could spell the end of the Hashemite kingdom, and that would be, like I said, the end of the buffer zone between Israel and Iran. The threat didn't end with the First Lebanon War, and large amounts of weaponry in the Palestinian refugee camps from which sporadic attacks against Israel also emerged are worth remembering. It's also worth noting that Hamas established training bases in Lebanon and one of its strongest political offices. Is this the direction Trump envisions when he proposes Jordan as a refuge for Gazans? Egypt could face a similar development, where its long and ongoing war against Islamist terrorist groups and the Muslim Brotherhood will be further complicated by the arrival of thousands of Hamas members in Sinai, an area where controlling and monitoring the flow of weapons and ammunition is an almost impossible challenge. The main island of Santorini has started to elevate, which means the magma chambers are being filled, wiped out the entire Minoan civilization before. Oh my God! Well, they better get the hell out of there. The economic burden Egypt could face would be a secondary concern compared to the direct connection likely to form between Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood. This partnership could lead to the creation of a skilled and experienced military wing that could pose a threat to both Egypt and Israel. Like Jordan, Egypt could risk becoming a state of conflict. Yeah. So this idea of putting millions of Gazans into Egypt and Jordan, it's a bad idea. It really is a bad idea. And it's going to lead to destabilization. And that destabilization is not going to be good for the Israelis. The Israelis think, well, we're just going to put them. It's not going to be good. It's a bad idea. You're better off just keeping the POWs in Gaza and then just having them living in tents. And then just rebuild Gaza. And then you can overthrow Hamas or get rid of Hamas and then replace them with the PA. And then you can work with the PA just like they do in the West Bank. It's a very ugly situation, guys. It's just very ugly, you know. Let's see here. When Trump's planned Middle Eastern Riviera and the manufacturing facilities to be built in Gaza rise before the eyes of hundreds of thousands of Gazans whose homes will be replaced by vacation sites, they'll have to live under this very real threat. It seems that this rosy dream will quickly turn into a nightmare. Yep, and that's another thing. So you have the idea of mass deportations. You have the idea of destabilizing Gaza and Egypt by mass deporting Gazans into their countries. It's very ugly. The whole idea is very ugly. Well, if that happens, Gaza will be gone as well. Problem solved for Trump, I guess. It may be, yeah, but for Israel, it's going to be a big-ass problem. And Israel, at first, the Israelis are going to be ecstatic. They're going to say, oh, this is amazing. We got rid of them. But then what happens if the Hashemites are overthrown? We ain't going to be laughing. Israel will not be laughing. The effort to thwart the threat posed by the transfer of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict to their territories, however, places Jordan and Egypt under Trump's looming gaze. As he presents them with an economic ultimatum, Egypt and Jordan, key players in the pro-Western and especially pro-U.S. axis, heavily depend on U.S. economic aid, which goes beyond just the nominal amounts they receive. This steady aid also functions as political support, serving as a crucial guarantee for obtaining loans from international financial institutions like the International Monetary Fund or the IMF. Additionally, it secures favorable trade agreements, military assistance, and the protection the United States extends to both countries. However, these countries also receive generous aid from the Gulf states, particularly Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. In the past year alone, both nations invested tens of billions of dollars in Egypt and millions in Jordan. Theoretically, if Saudi Arabia chooses to thwart Trump's threat and protect its sisters from his pressure, it could step in financially, effectively replacing the United States at a significantly lower cost than what would be required to build Trump's envisioned so-called Riviera in Gaza. So this article is saying that if Donald Trump just continues to persist and say, okay, Jordan, Egypt, you got to take in the Palestinians, you have to absorb them, according to this article, Saudi Arabia could step in and say, we're going to give the aid to the Egyptians and the Jordanians, and you, America, are going to step down because you are not going to pressure the Egyptians and the Jordanians to absorb Gazans, because that's going to potentially destabilize the Middle East. That's what this article is. Theoretically, if Saudi Arabia... Okay, I already read this. Moreover, Saudi Arabia announced 2 weeks ago that it plans to invest approximately $600 billion in the United States over the next 4 years of Trump's presidency. Trump, confident he can extract even $1 trillion from Crown Prince Salman, will need to evaluate who holds the greater economic leverage. And why is Saudi Arabia going to invest so many hundreds of billions of dollars into the United States? I'll tell you why. It's about Iran. That's it. That's the only reason. It's about Iran. We're going to invest all this money into the American economy. Trump, the United States, look how much money we're going to give you, Americans. We need your help. This is about Iran. That's it. America is extorting the Saudis. We're going to give you security. We're going to help you out. We're going to sell you the best weapons, but you better give us your money. It's just extortion. That's it. It's pure extortion. None of these countries, however, wants a confrontation with the United States, just as Trump is unlikely to forego the economic benefits Saudi Arabia offers him, nor the normalization he seeks between the Saudis and the Israelis. Now, this is a good observation, and it brings to mind something that I remember from the past. I remember when Donald Trump was president and the Saudis were at war with the Houthis, and all these people were starving to death. Thousands of people were starving to death in Yemen. And Trump made a huge multi-$100 billion deal with the Saudis, selling weapons to the Saudis. And what did Trump say? He said, I could not turn down such an offer. I remember this. Remember when Trump said that? He said, I don't want to turn down such an amazing deal with the Saudis. So the Saudis have their own leverage. It's called money. They have a lot of money. And so Trump wants that financial gain. He does. He wants to make deals with the Saudis. So Trump wants normalization between the Saudis and the Israelis. That means more arms deals with the Saudis. That means Israel getting more American weapons, more American military technology. That means more money for the Americans. So America benefits financially from an Israeli-Saudi pact. America benefits financially from Saudi Arabia investing money into the United States. Given Saudi Arabia's current resolute stance, the overwhelming opposition from the hosting countries and other regional states, as well as the criticism emerging from Congress regarding the transfer plan, Trump will likely have to adopt a new set of priorities. So this author here, he is saying that, listen, there's all this resistance. Saudi Arabia doesn't want to do it. Saudi Arabia is giving a lot of money to the United States. Israel definitely wants to do it, but Israel is not the boss here. America is the boss. So this guy is saying more than likely, Trump is going to have to find a new proposal. And we'll see what happens, right? Time will tell. Time will always tell. Even the normalization may have to wait until a sufficiently complex solution for Palestinian statehood is found, one that satisfies Saudi Arabia while maintaining the integrity of Netanyahu's coalition. So really, there's a whole bunch of egos that got to be stroked here. You got to stroke the egos of the fanatics in Israel and tell them, yeah, F those Palestinians. We're going to get them out. We're going to take them out. Oh, don't worry. You guys want to do genocide, ethnic cleansing. Don't worry. We're with you here, guys. Saudi Arabia say we want normalization talks, but we also want to make sure that the Palestinians are protected. So the Saudis are going to have to get something out of this deal, it looks like. So people are going to have to give and take, it looks like, and come to some sort of compromise. It may be best for now not to hold one's breath waiting for the statement about the annexation of the West Bank to Israel, which Trump promised to make within 4 weeks. The failure to annex in the previous round served the UAE as justification for signing the peace agreement with Israel. Now, this is really telling. So I remember this. Back when Trump was in office the first time, there was a lot of talk coming out of Israel about annexing the West Bank. And this caused a big controversy. And the scary thing is that there were people in Trump's circles who were saying, yeah, this is great. Let's do it. Annex those bastards, blah, 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 blah. And then what happened? The UAE came along and said, listen, we can do normalization talks with the Israelis, but don't annex the West Bank. And then Trump said, yeah, Israel, don't annex the West Bank. And Israel pulled back. So it feels like it's this sort of good cop, bad cop thing. Israel comes along and says, yeah, we're going to do this crazy thing. And then people from the administration come along and they say, yeah, Israel, go ahead and do it. And then what that does is it gets the Arabs to make concessions while demanding that the extreme route is not taken. So then the other side can say, oh, yeah, don't worry, we're not going to do that extreme route. We'll give you what you want, but we're going to get something out of it as well. So it looks like this is just a way to get everyone to compromise in some way. And I hope that this is the case and we're not looking at the beginning stages of a genocide.